Hello. So I am Samantha Cracker, and before we get going or continue, I'm hoping somebody is here and can just comment that it's working. If you can possibly jump on and say in a comment that this is working. I think it is, but I just also want to be sure. And I also would love to know that you can hear me, that the audio is okay as well. I'm in a little bit of a different space than I normally am. And I never do lives on my phone, so this is all a little different, and I just want to make sure that that it's working. So I am just looking below, looking for a possible comment. I'm hoping that I can see comments as well. Like, this is all a whole new world, and I thank you so much for being in it with me. So I am not seeing anything yet, but I'm also not sure how to sometimes do this. So let me see if I can open Facebook on my computer and see if there's something that I'm not seeing on my phone, because I'm telling you guys, thank you so much. Oh, okay. I see comments on my computer, so I'm going to keep the computer open. Don't mind if I'm kind of looking back and forth. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for saying that it's working, that you can hear me. And I'm so glad that I have a computer and a phone right now, right? I'm feeling super blessed. Okay, so I just want to say thank you so much for being here, for being interested in this topic. I think that it's so much more important than we know and understand. My name is Samantha Cracker. I'm a menstrual mental health specialist. I think that menstrual mental health is something that is not considered often enough, and is such a confusing thing that we are not really taught. And side note to that, I was able to actually go and buy menstrualmentalhealth.com because nobody on earth ever thought of buying that, which I think is just insane. When I went to buy it, I thought there's no way, right? But there was, and it was easy. And then I also bought PMS and PMDD because nobody thought of that. And I thought, okay, it's not just an untapped world. In my world, literally people buy names for domains all the time, and nobody ever thought of those. So anyway, that was one of those things that I was just like, I can't believe this. And it's even more, it was even more, obvious at that moment that this is such a needed topic. So let's just start by just taking a deep breath, getting into a really nice space, releasing our shoulders if we can. I like to breathe out longer than I breathe in personally, because I feel like it gives us an opportunity to expel some of the stagnancy that we tend to keep inside, especially if we're shallow breathing up top from anxiety or emotion or anything like that. And as we go into talking about this, sometimes it's nice to just release and allow ourselves to have fresh breath and be in a calm and centered place in order to really be ready to receive information. Okay, so let's see. I'm just going to check over here. If you guys have any questions, I would love to make sure that I can receive them. So I'm just going to go and check if I can see these comments. Let's see. And it does do that video. Okay, so I can see. And I just want to make sure that there's no echoing or anything, seeing as I have two things on. And I'm sure you guys would have already told me, but I just want to make sure. So we just want to thank the universe for bringing us here together today, for allowing us the ability to breathe together and to look forward on this topic. and I would like to welcome you all. So if you have any questions or things that you think you want to know, please feel free to put them in the thing. I have no problem bringing anybody on to go live with me after we talk about this a little bit. So if you have anything that you want to even bounce off of me, or just things that you have questions about that you would rather have dialogue with, please feel free to ask to come on. I will do that anytime with anybody who wants to. As many people as want to come on, that's totally fine. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of my history. I was a doula. I think that working with women is super important. Bringing the best out in each other and being there to support each other in community is wonderful. I was a life coach, a regular life coach for a long time. And I really felt like things were moving forward in a pretty good way for a little while. We all have our ups and downs. And during the time that I was a doula and a life coach, there were times that I felt really, really overwhelmed, that I felt like my emotions were all over the place, regardless of these things that were going okay. And I occasionally would ask at my OBGYN, or I even went to a counselor once, and I said, sometimes I feel like this weird, like insane rage, this inability to really understand myself, and I wonder if it's related to my cycle. And this was at a time that it wasn't that bad, and my OBGYN ended up saying to me, I think that you should just, like, if you're in a relationship, you should just take your gentleman's credit card and you should go have retail therapy for a few days during your worst time. Just go and spend money, enjoy yourself, and have fun, and get over the hump of whatever it is that you're going through. So I felt as though I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to do that. That's not even me or my style or anything like that. But I felt like she was essentially saying, figure out how to get over it, right? Figure out what works for you to get over it. That's essentially what I felt like she was saying. And at the time, I wasn't 100% sure of how much I was actually affected by cycle. I just knew there was something. Fast forward to, you go through being a doula, you're watching women. I go through being a life coach, I'm watching women. And it got to a point where I was pretty successful and I was doing really well. But I was still having these moments that just crept in and were like, but you're not. You know what I mean? There's something missing. Then my life kind of crashed. I ended up losing my relationship. And a few things happened during that time. Where I was previously on birth control. Now I wasn't in a relationship. My birth control was removed because I didn't need it at the time. And I was like, who needs this, et cetera, et cetera. And I crashed into this psychotic depression that was like insane. And when I say that, I mean that almost literally. When I say insane, I felt insane. I started questioning every single thing that I was doing. I no longer wanted to be a doula. I no longer wanted to be a life coach. I thought to myself, if I could feel this bad, how could I ever serve other people? How could I be somebody that helps people? All of that crept in more than it ever had. And I got to this low place where I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go anywhere. And it just kept continuing down that spiral of continuous negativity, and it was just overwhelming, and I had no idea what to do. I did get to the point of wanting to commit suicide. I got into self-harm. It was severe. It was very, very severe, and I kept questioning whether sometimes it was worse than others, and why. Why did every once in a while I feel like I had a couple of days where I felt okay, or like I was going to be okay, and then it would just fall back to the pits. And little by little, I got to a point where I was scared to make choices. I was scared to be alive, because if you've ever been in a space like that, and I hope that you haven't been, but if you've ever been in a space like that, then it's a really scary place to be. And when I talk to people about it who don't understand, I say, okay, the depression, if you've ever seen the movie Ghost, The depression is almost like those shadows, right, that are all around you. And those shadows, in the movie Ghost, used to come out and like grab you when you died. But I say, imagine if you weren't dead and you were just walking around, but you knew these shadows were everywhere and you didn't know when they were going to come out and get you, right? And sometimes that's how it can feel. And the anxiety part of being, that deep is maybe you're going to be standing on like tall, thin mountaintops. And somebody came and poured mud all over all the mountaintops. And you were just standing on this one tiny little mountaintop and only your feet could fit there. You knew you had to take a step to get off of where you were, but you didn't know where to stop because there was all this mud everywhere. So the next step you were going to take was either going to be stuck in mud sinking or on the top of another tippy mountaintop that's exhausting, right? It's exhausting to stand on these little tiny mountaintops where you still don't know what your next decision is going to be, or if your next decision is going to be the one that takes you down. So that's how I can describe the place that I was living. It was like living in between those two things, full of anxiety, full of that depression. And I went back to my OB and I said, there's a part of me that feels like this is cyclical and I'm scared. I've noticed that every once in a while I do feel better. And when I really try to look into what I'm feeling, I noticed that it also got worse when I got off the pill. I was contributing that to the factors in my life that were happening. So yes, huge factors happened in my life. I got off the pill. For a long time, I thought my depression was only because of my life factors and not because of the hormones and the other things that I was experiencing getting off of the birth control. At that time, she said, well, I'm just going to, maybe you can have some Prozac and you can just take it for those couple of days that are the worst. And I mean, it was just like, I knew that there was a deeper answer there and that I wasn't getting it. I also knew that at that point, where I was mentally was so breakable, for lack of better wording, that I needed to be cautious over who I listened to and what I did. I decided to go to a counselor. He was absolutely a nutcase and told me all about his patients. And I was like, this is terrible, right? There's no help out here when we're looking for help. So what I ended up doing was, long story short, within one visit, he told me all about his patients. He spent 45 minutes talking about himself. And shortly after that, he said, oh, okay, so I'm going to ask you these questions. And I want all of you ladies to think about these questions as I'm asking you them. And please feel free to even comment your answers to some of these questions, what you would have said. He said, I'm going to give you a mental health screening right now. And I want to know, and if you guys have ever been asked these questions before, you'll know what they are. Have you ever spoke faster sometimes than others to a point that it feels like you're so excited to get your words out that you're not even paying attention? Yep, I have. Have you ever felt more sexual than other times? Yep, yes, I have. Are you ever way more tired than you are at other times to the point you feel like you can't get your things done in your day? Yes, I have, right? And I answered yes to these questions. There was a few more, but they were all, oh, have you ever done anything that people in your life might consider dangerous? Yes, I have. You know what I mean? Like, I was a yes to absolutely everything he answered. And when he was done, 15 minutes is what I got out of this, answering these questions. He said, so I know your problem, you're bipolar. And I am so grateful that I know myself well enough to say there is a problem and that's not it. And I walked out of there with a weird determination that I hadn't had before. And it wasn't like this bold, oh my God, now I know what I'm supposed to do determination, but it was just like this determination that said, I need to find the answers myself. And so what I ended up doing was going home and I opened up my phone and I made a table in the notes area of my phone and I started tracking everything about myself and what I was doing and what I was thinking and what I was feeling. And I had spoke to a gentleman who said, yeah, Sam, I had talked to him for a little bit and he was like, I've noticed that all the women that I talk to have a cyclical thing, and we don't know how to handle it as men. And I just started really thinking about it. So I did. I started tracking all the time. But what I was tracking was, on this day, what was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was I, doing? So that I can try to find some correlations, because that's the way my brain works. It wants to figure out trackable data, right? To have answers. And I realized that that's what I needed to do on myself. And that is how Menstrual Mental Health was born, because I realized that when I first started tracking, I had a similar thing when I was prescribed anxiety medication in 2018. I knew there was something deeper. I had to resolve it myself. You are amazing. Aww. Yeah, it's really serious. One of the biggest parts of my job, or what I want my job to be, is really to go and educate the providers. And yet, because I am not a mental health provider, like I don't have a degree in psychology, I am not welcome in their space. And so I'm trying to change that. So that's a side note, but that's the goal. The goal is not just to be here speaking to you, which is really important, but the goal is also to really get out there and educate the providers the way that I feel like I should and could, to get this wider array, that when we go in somewhere, it's not just here's your medication, because that's not what needs to happen. So that is the beginning of my story for why this happened and how it happened and how it kind of came into place, and why it came into place. And what we did from there is I ended up going into some of my local groups and talking to my local women that I was a part of, also my clients, and asking them if they would be part of a focus group. I ended up collecting a ton of data, and the things that I ended up finding were a little bit beyond what I thought I was going to find. And I was so excited, because when I was finding these things, first I would apply them to myself, and then I was asking my focus group to apply them to themselves as well. And there's a couple layers there, and so we're going to go through some of them. And so step one is just understanding what the parts of the cycle are. And what I'm going to do, hang on one second. So right now, you guys, I'm in a hotel, and the reason that I'm in a hotel is because my dog is like super sick. And so don't mind me. I am just going to look at him for one moment, because he was in the hospital, and so we're at a hotel right near hospital, so that if he's sick, I can get him there. And he just kind of rushed towards me, so I'm feeling a little anxious. It's one of those things, right? Life. Oh my goodness. So, hang on one second. Here, buddy. Here. Little cookie, make your belly better? His little belly is not doing well. Okay, so what we're going to do is just move into the parts of the cycle and how they actually affect us compared to maybe what we were thinking and what we were taught. And so let's start with number one. We all think that we know about PMS, right? And I think that's the part that we all focus on, and that we're all taught to focus on, is PMS in general. And what it is kind of a joke to everybody. It is something that we talk about, we joke about, our spouses joke. The general thing is that we are uncontrollable, you know what I mean? Emotional hot messes. And so all the research in the world has gone towards PMS. The research that is out there, regardless of the fact that not a lot of people pay attention to it, is geared towards specifically PMS, what happens during that time, and the fact that we are super emotional and most of the time don't know how to control it. And I would say it's true, you know, for the most part, and I know that it's this big joke or whatever, but it is a really emotional time for us. What I ended up learning was that that particular time for us is technically what I just call a feel. It comes from our bodies. It comes from our lower half of our bodies. It comes from, you know, our beautiful womb area. And as you're moving through the time of luteal phase, which comes, I should back up. I got a little distracted with my dog. It comes from ovulation all the way up until when you get your period. Okay, so, and sorry again for my distraction. I feel like, oh my goodness. So during that time, it's a feel phase. It's a really, really integral feeling. You have all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions that come from birth all the way up until now. So it's conscious and subconscious thoughts, emotions, and feelings that are brought up all the way from then. Please don't mind me. Hi, honey. Hi, you okay? So it's a really important time, and it's part of the reason why we are consistently feeling all of the feels, right? So we already kind of know that. Something that I think that we don't know is some of the other parts and what they do and why they are so important, and sometimes even more important than what we think is the important time. So we're going to start right at the beginning, and we're going to say, okay, we already kind of know a little bit about PMS. We already know what that's doing. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, my baby. Hi, my baby. And we're going to start right at the beginning. So we're going to say our day 1 is the day that we get our period. We get our period, and that is going to be called the follicular phase. And if you don't know the follicular phase, I am going to put a PDF in here later on, and it's going to have all this information. So follicular phase is day 1 of your period. You get your period, which means that your endometrium has, built up, and you're ready to shed your lining. And we know the physical part of that is the shedding of the lining. During the time that you are follicular, you are normally, oh, so cute. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for, yeah, it's been a week. I'll tell you that. So follicular is a time of dew, okay? If you're going to be writing it down, or if you're taking notes, you're going to say follicular is your day 1. It's when you get your period. And it's when our brain starts moving into its dew, its action phase, okay? So the action phase of our cycle starts with kind of a physical inaction phase, right? I mean, it's inaction because we're bleeding, and or not bleeding, because this is even if you're not bleeding. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. So you are bleeding, and so physically, sit down. Yeah. Physically, you are having the action of it all coming out. But sometimes it's going to allow us not to want action, right, within ourselves. But our brain starts moving faster. And technically, the hormones that are being pushed out right at the time, and again, I'm going to put a PDF of that in the group as well, those hormones are getting our executive functioning up and moving. And so our executive functioning levels are all going to start being higher. And even though we have our period maybe, and we might be feeling crampy, and we might be feeling all the physical things or exhaustion, our brain itself is actually wired to start moving faster, to start understanding things. Our speech is better. Everything about our executive functioning actually rises during the follicular phase. A lot of people are excited for it. They know when it's coming. They know they're going to feel better. They know that, oh, finally I got my period. I start feeling really good. So you're moving into that phase, and I call it a dew, and it also comes out of the head. So when you're using your thoughts and emotions out of that time, if you pay attention to your body, and I think that the women in this group are really have the intention of paying attention to their bodies, right? You'll notice that if you close your eyes and really ask your body, where is this coming from? It's going to be the top half of your body most of the time. It's going to be a very intellectual time, whether we have strong emotions, thoughts, and everything. If you really tune in, and I'll ask you to do that coming up in these next few months, right? Tune in with yourself and say, where is this coming from? You can almost always feel that it's going to be up here. So you're in your follicular phase. You're able to do things better. You are able to write your to-do lists. You're able to cross things off the to-do list. You're able to think. It's akin to being able to see the world. It's akin to really understanding, oh my God, I want to start 3 businesses. I'm so inspired. I cannot wait to take the dog for a walk. I am going to wash my face. I'm going to be doing things, whatever it is. And sometimes during this follicular time, we get so really good at things that we just feel on top of the world, right? We just feel like we got our vibe back, right? We are moxied, right? We are ready to go. We are unstoppable. So during that time, that's what you can kind of expect if you're on your best level, that you know some of those heavy feelings from the luteal phase are going to go away. Now, once that particular time is at its cusp, it's because you're moving into the ovulatory phase, and I call ovulatory cloud 9. Most of the stuff that you feel through ovulatory is going to be whole-bodied. I believe that it's a whole body feeling, and it's usually different and more gentle. So in that ovulatory phase, the reason that we call it cloud 9 is sometimes we allow ourselves, and if you don't mind me, I'm just gonna, what do you need, honey? I'm just gonna walk with him for a second to figure out what he needs. We allow ourselves to be calm, and if you want to talk about the technicalities of it, what's going to be technical about it is that it's supposed to be the time that we're getting ready to make a baby, right? And that sounds pretty normal and calm and, you know, whatever. Oh, okay, so we're going to go into ovulatory. It's the time that sometimes we want to jump the milkman, we want to have sex, we want to enjoy ourselves, but there's something else that comes over us, and it's this ultimate contentedness sometimes, right? Where we are just relaxed and we totally accept things that we normally wouldn't. And ovulatory lasts for, you know, a certain little amount of time. Again, please don't mind my distractions. And what happens during, if you don't know what happens during ovulation, because I didn't know what happens during ovulation, our ovary actually fills up with eggs, and it jumped the milkman. Yeah, I know, right? Oh my gosh, it's so funny. And that's what I mean. Like, we'll do things that we wouldn't normally do. You know what I mean? But our bodies are literally meant that way because our bodies are screaming to be fertilized, right? That's technically what our bodies were made to do at that time. And so regardless of, you know, all the stuff that goes on, it's just hormonal, it's innate. So, you know, it's one of those things. What are you doing, buddy? So yeah, jump the milkman is definitely one of them. But also just in general, I would say an overall feeling of allowance as well. There's an overall feeling of calmness and allowance because our hormones kind of allow that to, like, they make it that way. And so you take all of these things, and that's like the basics, right? If that was what you would consider the absolute basics, I think that that's what's taught in general. And when I was doing all the research, and this is kind of what's out there, right? There's stuff that I still, ovaries, back to ovaries. So your ovary gets big. You have all these eggs inside, and the eggs are competing. I didn't know the eggs compete to get out, just kind of like the sperm competes to get in. So the egg competes to get out, and what happens is one of the eggs gets big enough to push itself through the skin of the ovary, which is the part I didn't know. When they said the ovary releases an egg, I thought that there was actually something, you know, that released it. That's not the case. It actually pushes itself outside of the skin of the ovary, which creates something called a corpus luteum. And the corpus luteum is actually a wound in the side of your ovary. And that actual wound is what starts sending out the luteal hormones. So that's when your luteal phase begins, is actually once that egg is released, right? And it starts sending out those luteal hormones to get you ready for pregnancy, right? To start allowing your journey to commence. What I try to explain to people once I started learning more is that that wound is actually a wound. But what ends up happening inside of us moving into our feel phase is a wound, right? So it's a wound where we are wounded. This egg comes out, and if it was fertilized, our hormones would change and everything would change. But it's not. Our egg is a wound leaving our ovaries, sitting in that space, and then has to get dissolved back into the body. Right? It just kind of gets dissolved back into the body. And something that I always try to remind my clients is it's technically a wound. And if you listen to your body, if you're listening to everything that it's telling you, when you hit that luteal phase from ovulatory phase, it can feel really, really sharp. It can feel really like an emotional drop. And you're actually wounded. And I didn't know that. I had no idea that there was an actual wound inside my body, and possibly, and this is where we get into this, metaphysics stuff, is my body, with the hormones that are provided within it, actually mourning the egg that I'm giving away that didn't get fertilized? That's not something that can be factual or proven, but within my thought process, right, and the thought of our body-mind relations, is that what could happen there? And that's a question that's up for opinion, and I would love to know what you guys think about that, because I just find it really interesting that our move into a feeling part, our move into our more emotional part, our move into that feeling on that side that's more towards grief, that's more towards anger, that's more towards disappointment, starts with a wound, starts with a loss, right? I think it's just absolutely crazy of a connection, like it's a crazy connection. Okay, so aside from that, now we're going to get into how those things are actually deeper than I ever thought they were, and what I ended up learning. Because it wasn't just about learning the parts of the cycle, and it wasn't just about being like, oh my gosh, now I know that there's this physical wound and all of these things, and the dots started just dotting all over the place. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And as I'm learning and as I'm doing the stuff, I'm looking at the data that's in my tracker, my little homemade tracker, and I'm looking and I'm like, okay, it started out suicidal, 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 suicidal. And I started looking at where my thoughts were and what they were. And I started realizing patterns that I never thought existed. And what I realized is that everybody was focused on luteal phase. Everybody was focused on the emotional phase. And that really, truly, most suicides, self-harm, and or hospitalizations for women for mental health happened during luteal phase. It was 87%. So there was PMDD, and if you don't know what PMDD is, please go look it up. PMDD is exemplified PMS, where you are feeling those extremely strong PMS feelings, those extremely differences in how you feel during that luteal phase, to the fact that it's like almost manic, where you are truly feeling suicidal or extremely depressed or extremely anxious or extremely manic, So I would take a minute and look up the PMDD. But what I realized even more so was what we do in our follicular phase is more important than what we do in our luteal phase. And so I started really, really digging into that theory once I had that theory. And what I had to realize is how many things changed during the cycle that were because of follicular. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to watch what's going on in follicular, I'm going to start by looking into what are my choices during my due phase? What are my choices and my thoughts and my feelings and my reactions to stimuli during my due phase? And how is it affecting my feel phase? And it opened up a whole new world. So I started tracking that. And what that ended up being was me being able to say, okay, in my due phase, I was really confident. So I didn't think that that was a problem. I loved being in my due phase. Then I started realizing, in my due phase, I wanted to start 3 businesses. In my due phase, I was inspired to start a new workout. In my due phase, I was inspired to start a new face routine, like wash. In my due phase, I wanted to take the dog for a walk every day. In my due phase, wow, I'm really proud of myself. I can't believe all I'm doing. And that's when I realized, if in your due phase, you have all these do's, but in your luteal phase, your hormones change and your executive functioning naturally changes and you naturally become more introspective, but you don't have as many do's. If I start 3 businesses in my follicular, but when I get to my luteal, I don't know what I'm doing because I don't have the same amount of executive functioning. And I start doubting myself and I say, I don't know what I was fucking thinking. I don't know what I was thinking by thinking I could start 3 businesses. Or if I decided to work out in follicular and a couple weeks into it, gave it up and I couldn't get myself to do it, I think to myself, you know what, Sam? You never finish anything. Like you can't even get yourself to do anything on a regular basis. Or I start washing my face and that goes away too. That means every time I hit luteal, I notice everything that I can't fucking do. And that's when I realized, oh my God, luteal isn't necessarily the problem. Luteal is just where all of our thoughts and feelings are looking at, wow, this feels like I didn't finish this and I didn't do that and this person didn't do that. And let's say if it's really what I think, right? If it's really an exemplification of all the thoughts, feelings, and things that we've done since from birth till now, what if we have an abandonment wound? What if we have all of these wounds that we've already carried inside of us, or we have things where our parents have told us, look at you, you don't get anything done. And you're carrying that emotional wound inside. Well, during your field time, you already have that wound there possibly, and now you didn't finish your workout. Now you're really a loser, aren't you? Right? You just look at yourself and you're like, they're right. I suck. Or maybe you look at other people and you're like, this is your fault. You're constantly telling me that I suck. So, we're mad at everybody. We're mad at ourselves. And we don't even realize what's going on. Another thing of follicular that I ended up realizing is sometimes when I was super confident, I became an egotistical bitch. In this follicular phase, when I felt like, no, you know what? I've got myself now. Whatever happened, I've got myself now. I'm starting 3 businesses. I did my workout. I was able to get it done every single day. I find that my executive functioning sometimes gets so high and I'm so good at what I'm doing that sometimes I'll be like this to my family. I'll be like, are we going yet? Why is everybody taking so long to get their jackets on? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What am I doing? Right? And I found that during that time, I was actually more bitchy in a rude way. And that's just me because everybody's going to present differently. But I got this because I tracked. I got this because I started understanding myself. I got this because I really looked at same stimuli. How does it affect me differently during all the times of my cycle? And there was some moments where I was like, oh my God. And I could look back through my whole life and I could say, oh my God. And so I believe that I might have said this on the podcast, but I'm going to tell you a little story when it came to looking back on my son cleaning his room. Follicular. I asked my son to clean his room. Maybe or maybe not. He said, yes, fine. But whatever it was, I was able to be like, no, we're cleaning the room because we're doing it, right? Because I'm in my top half. I'm not emotional about it. I'm more apt to either be kind to ask, confident to ask, and confident that I can overcome sometimes the rebuttals that happen. Not only that, I would be more up to an argument. Like I would be able to handle an argument. Like, oh, okay, so I know you want to argue with me, but you're still going to clean your room, right? And I'm just using this particular thing as an example because it's an easy one for me because that's how I follicular. So I would be able to say, go clean your room. And he would say yes or no. And I would say whatever it was, like to get it done. And he would get it done. And then the next day I could say, all right, your room clean, homework done, everything done, like this. And by the time follicular was really follicularing, things would feel like they're moving on track. My to-dos were getting done. My ability to manage my household was way better. And you start feeling really good. But then you also start feeling really like, got this. You know, you could feel like that a lot. And we get all the way up to ovulation. And that's going to be the interesting part about ovulation. Ovulation, my cloud 9. Let's say ovulation comes and I ask my son, can you clean your room, please? And he says, Mom, I have been cleaning my room every day this week. Like, it's clean. Like, it's clean. And can we just do me a favor and give me this day off? Like, whatever. Like, can I just not do it? And me in ovulation, that just lets stuff go because I'm getting into that point where I'm just soft and sweet. I say, yeah, you know what, you're right. Let's go out and celebrate how much we've gotten done lately. Let's go have ice cream. Let's like go to a movie. Like, it doesn't even matter. The laundry's going to stay on the sofa and I don't even care. So during that time, I want you to look. If you're hitting ovulation, I want you to look at yourself. I want you to look at your stimuli, and I want you to look around your home. Do the things that normally bother you? Are the things that aren't put away or the things that aren't getting done, is it a big deal? Because for most of us with the data, I have found that there is that couple of days where it's just like, oh, it's okay. You know what? I just love my house. This is fine. Everything will be fine. And I've been doing so well lately. I know that if I take this day off and just relax, or if I'm just kind of puttering around doing my things, it'll be fine. No big deal. Well, this is what happens. You go have ice cream. You're relaxed. You're happy. You're chilling. The next day you wake up, you're like, oh, yeah, no big deal. And maybe by the next day, you wake up and you look around and you're like, this fucking house is a mess. Now, here's the thing. You've just hit luteal phase. Your executive functioning has already gone down, right? It already plummets and it's just like, hello, we're feeling the things. We're noticing the things that we didn't do. And we don't have the functioning to do them. Welcome to luteal phase, right? And it's just like this big, whoa. So you get up and you think to yourself, I'm going to ask him to clean his room. Like, we can't do this. I just can't handle this, right? I can't even do it alone. Like, this just has to get done. But it's more of like this emotional feeling now. So you go in and you say, hey, can you clean your room today? Because I just need it done. And your child says, seriously, like we cleaned all week last week. Do we really have to clean again today? Instead of how you might have reacted in follicular, which might have been demand, which might have been confidence, which might have been clarity, you might now all of a sudden respond by saying something like, are you serious? Like, I gave us a couple of days off and obviously I shouldn't have, because now you don't want to listen. You know what? Do you really ever listen to me? I mean, maybe I even said like, don't clean your room the other day because I just wanted to enjoy my day. You know, because I didn't want to even deal with the argument that might have been coming. I couldn't even deal with the argument. And he's looking at you and you're like, can you just clean your room? And now, who knows how he's going to respond, because it's really going to depend on your household, your relationship, et cetera, et cetera. And this is in my house. My son would look at me and be like, what is your problem? What is my problem? Well, now I'm insane, right? And I didn't know until I was looking back how I was responding to the stimuli so differently. How I was all of a sudden, and I hate to say creating problems, right? Because we're just being our true selves and reacting out of our true thoughts and our true feelings and our true emotions. But what I didn't realize at the time is how emotionally I was reacting out of my body and out of my own personal wounds of, am I good enough, right? My own personal wounds of, am I even able to create consistency? My own personal wounds of, am I a good enough mom? Does he clean his room enough that I could fit in with the other moms? You know, because that's what I was going through at the time. And so my reactions to the specific stimuli would create reactions that were different than I would probably have wanted or needed to have happen, if that makes sense. And it wasn't until I started looking at this in all the areas of every choice, every stimuli, every single thing in my life that I realized how differently everything would be if we put it through the lens of how am I looking at this and where in my cycle am I looking at this from? And I started realizing, okay, what do I like about some of the things? And I call them luteal losses. What do I like about some of the things in a luteal loss? And what don't I like about some of the things? So let's see. What are some things that I can do consistently all the time? Thing one, make coffee, right? And I realized I love my dog all the time. I realized I can make coffee every single day. I make coffee without thought. I make coffee with joy. And I realized, okay, I like everything about coffee. I like the emotional side of coffee. I like the mental side of coffee. I like the smell of coffee. I like the feeling of coffee. I like the way it tastes. There's nothing about it. I like pushing the button. I like getting it ready. So when I'm in my do phase, I can do it. I can make coffee. When I'm in my feel phase, I can do it. Feels good? I can do it, right? But if I look at washing my face, I can't stand even the thought of water running down my arms. I can't stand the feeling of washing my face. Like, it's annoying to me. I don't like when the sides of my hair get wet, right? But I like the outcome of washing my face. Well, when I'm in follicular, the outcome is worth the do because I have more do's, right? I have more ability to do. So in follicular, when I'm ready to do, I can do it. I can wash my face. But when I get into that luteal phase, I can't do it because I only like the outcome. I don't like the feeling of the do, if that makes sense. Now you take that and you look at that in multiple different aspects. What about working out? I only like the result, right? So does that get lost in luteal? Sure does. And it just goes on and on and on. There's a million things that if you look at your particular version of what you like to do, is it based on the result or is it based on the entirety of the act? So that was thing one that I really needed to look at and say, okay, for all my luteal losses, a lot of them are just because I don't fucking like doing them. I just like the result. And that allowed me to feel so differently about who I was when I was in luteal phase. Instead of looking at myself like a loser who just never completed anything, I could look at myself and I could say, oh, Sammy, you really don't like the way that one feels. And then I can ask myself, is this a big deal? Or is this something that you could be gentle with yourself and work through in order to get yourself to slowly overcome the fact that this does need to continue to be done, right? So you're looking at yourself with a different kind of self-compassion, understanding, and you're able to say, okay, self, this is something that needs to be done. How can we allow ourselves to be gentle with ourselves for the parts we don't like about it, or the fact that I would rather sit staring at the sink for 4 hours than wash my face for 4 minutes, right? How can we work through some of that stuff that actually needs to get done in order to gently allow us to do it, or let it go? Realize you only have so many do's in not a do phase, right? So that was thing one that I want to leave with you guys. It was a long thing one, right? But it's thing one. It's look at the stimuli that's in your life. Look at the things that you want to do. Look at your things that are luteal losses. Start making a list. What are the things that you look at yourself and you say, man, I wanted to start a business, but then I didn't. Well, in your luteal phase, things get harder to do. But there's also things that get easier to do. And that's going to be another list. I want you to make a list of possibly things that you pick up in luteal that would frustrate you in follicular. And I want you to start looking at the luteal phase not as this PMS phase that is just negative, but that brings you all of these feels and this ability to possibly do different things. And look at yourself with compassion and look at the things and things that come up for you during that phase as in, thank you so much for showing me some of the moments that are really overwhelming for me. I'm going to allow myself to look at maybe what's going on here. Like for me, I realized some of my wounds that were coming up for me and what they were and what I needed to really work through on my heart, to lighten my heart, to lighten what I was carrying, right? What I was carrying throughout the entire time. And I think that once you just start doing those couple of things, it changes everything. I realized that I'm really good at organization on the computer. Like, I'm going to put a file here and I'm going to put a file here during luteal phase because I really don't want to be doing a lot. But sitting in front of the computer like this and moving little files around becomes easier. In my follicular, that would annoy me so bad because I'd be like, oh my God, I'm sitting at this computer for 40 minutes. Deleting pictures. I know that that's a silly thing, right? But I have 90,000 pictures in my phone. I realized that during luteal, I could sit for 2 hours going through pictures. Oh my goodness, wow, delete, right? So my more mundane tasks that don't bother me are so easy to do in my luteal phase. And I actually have to give a lot of love for what I've realized of who I am in luteal. A lot of the fact that once you start digging into some of the things that come up from you in that side, you can actually really say, oh my goodness, I'm going to use some of the deep emotions that come up during that time. Reframing. For example, with my dog, in all the previous years, I realized that in my luteal phase, I would consistently worry, was I good enough? Was I a good enough dog mom, right? Because that's a really important thing to me. Did I walk him enough? Have I done enough that if he died, I wouldn't feel guilty? Like, seriously, this stuff would go through my head. Like, oh my God, oh my God. Right now, I got my period today, but this last week, my dog's been in and out of the hospital. If I didn't know what I know, that could have sent me over the edge of what did I do? Could I have done better? Was I good enough? If he died, all these things, right? That would have sent me over the edge of, am I good enough wound in my luteal phase? Because I know what I know, I allow myself to use some of those feelings and the reframe to say, wow, you're thinking those things. Like, those things are going to come up for you, but you're thinking them because you fucking love that dog so much. You love him so much. And then I'll take that thought and feeling, now that I've reframed it, and hug him and squeeze him and tell him, God, I love you so much. And allow myself to be proud of that woman that worries about her dog, but that also has done the reframe so often because I've practiced it, that it's milliseconds before I go from, are you good enough, to, wow, I really love you and I'm so proud of this woman that loves her dog, right? Like, it takes time for that reframe to become so natural, but like, that's what I've done to go from who I was when I got into that phase to who I am now. And then when it comes to follicular, I've had to look at myself and been like, am I being a bitch with how many things? I'm like, have you done that yet? Like, are you not good as me right now? And realized that I was burning bridges and I was doing things and I shouldn't have been. And that creates a homeostasis that says, how many things am I taking on? Am I doing the right things for myself? Am I doing them for the right reasons? Is this something I can hold off on and see how I feel during my luteal phase, what comes up for me? You know, how can I allow myself, and really the funny thing is, once you start tracking and you really know yourself, you can almost look inside and be like, ooh, luteal phase won't like this. You know what I mean? Like, I know myself so well that I know most of the time what I'm going to be able to handle or not handle. And I say most of the time because we have life circumstances that are going to come up and it's going to, you know, knock us on our ass sometimes. And that's going to happen no matter what. Learning this stuff doesn't stop you from having thoughts and emotions and feelings. It just creates better understanding of self and the allowance to possibly create that homeostasis by saying, if I know myself during both things, I can know what to take on. I can kind of know what to do. I can kind of know what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm taking on. And I know myself in luteal phase and I know who I like to be in that phase. And I've learned reframing to help myself understand the thoughts and the feelings that come up during that time. And every single one of my clients, even with PMDD, have been able to say, maybe it's not PMDD. It's conditioning. It's not understanding. And it's not knowing mindfulness and reframing. Because what we're taught does not reflect at all of the different things that are coming into it. And so I'm going to kind of take that to a little bit of a darker place. When it comes to me going into these offices, one of the questions that kept coming up for me, or one of the statements that kept coming up for me was, wow, this is such great information. And even with therapists, I'm going to take this in and I'm going to start looking at my clients and I'm going to start trying to see where they're cyclically feeling the worst, right? And if it's during PMS, I'm going to know that this is cyclical for them. And I would be like, you missed the mark. Everything I just said, you missed the mark, right? Because the point is sometimes we carry loads that are so heavy, and sometimes we don't, but it's all cyclical, right? Every single woman on this planet, whether you have the heavy suicidal thoughts or you don't, can follow this. And yet when I go into these offices, it was still not comprehended. Something I also had to teach the offices was just a little bit of the dark side that I was bringing up is it's not just the women that feel that way during the luteal phase. The luteal phase is the most common place to feel those things. But I'm going to go down a few instances where that might change. Let's say you are in a controlling relationship, or let's say you are in a place where you're broke. Or let's say you're in a place where you're stuck emotionally, mentally, whatever it is, there's a stuckness to yourself. And that's not going to feel good in luteal phase. But if we look at how it affects us in follicular is our due. Follicular is a time that we are looking for ourselves to do, to have confidence, to write lists, right? It's innate in us to have that due to our higher executive functioning that our hormones bring us. But if you're in a place where you feel stuck, where you don't trust yourself, where you hate yourself, you're in a controlling relationship, even an abusive relationship, and during your due phase, the only thing that you're allowed to do is nothing, or you can't move forward on a dream, or even as simple as, man, I started a business and there's so many things that I need to do, but I'm stuck doing nothing for whatever reason. Follicular can feel like you're trapped in a box. It can be full of anxiety. It can be full of pacing. It can be full of anger. And that anger can be very violent. It could be very, very potent. It could be inward towards self. It could be outward. The anxiety could be inward. It could be outward. The self frustration or the frustration towards the world for what you feel like is injustice can come out a lot in that follicular phase. That follicular phase can be explosive or angry or full of anxiety if you're not able to be yourself within it. If you're not able to do the things that you innately want and need to do, follicular becomes a trapped animal cage. And it's a horrible feeling, you know? So during that time, can somebody become suicidal? Can they jump off a bridge? Can these things happen? Can those parts really, really have huge implications? Absolutely. 1,000%. Now let's move into, and I'm sure there's a million more. I'm just, giving some examples. Let's move into ovulatory phase. Ovulatory phase is cloud 9. We don't mind the laundry on the bed possibly, or there's other reasons or things that we feel really good, right? And maybe we do feel sexual. Maybe during that time, there's a lot of stuff that comes up for us. But also maybe during that time, if you are somebody who has been through a lot of sexual abuse, or you're not in a relationship and you're lonely, or I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but let's say for some reason that the thought or feeling of wanting to be with a partner in any kind of loving or sexual way brings you shame or sorrow. How does ovulation feel for you? Not good. And again, there's going to be a lot of reasons there why it might not feel good. I'm just bringing up a couple to give you food for thought. But the point is, you have to really look at yourself and say, what's coming up for me and why? What is here happening right now that's coming up for me and why? And sometimes it's just a bad day, guys. But I was able to really look at so much that was going on within myself and how I was feeling at the different times, especially looking back and saying, wow, you just got out of that relationship and you didn't feel good almost any of the time. Well, I felt stuck, so follicular sucked. I was alone, so ovulation sucked. And then I hated everything. Luteal sucked. I thought I was just depressed. But it's because I had no idea what was going on inside of myself and why. And I wasn't able to heal it, and no therapist could have helped without making me understand how I was relating to what was naturally coming up for me from my body. So without that body-mind connection, I don't think I'd be here today. I didn't understand myself. And that's the point of this entire thing. That's the point of everything that I'm talking about today, is just understanding yourself and saying, what's going on? What is the stimuli that's happening right now? And how can I create a better homeostasis for myself through just understanding and being there? And then learning what's really good for me, or what feels, wrong or right. And if I continue to work on that month by month, was it just a kind of a thing that was going on for that month, or is this really for me? And it takes a long time. I tell people this isn't a one and done kind of thing, because you only have every month to work on it, right? So we only have one luteal phase a month, and one ovulatory phase a month, and one follicular phase a month. So overall, you can try something, but then you got to wait a whole month to try something new, right? And that kind of sucks. But before you know it, months have gone by, and things just feel different, and you really start noticing the idiosyncrasies, and you start noticing phrases that you say at different times of the month that don't happen at the other times of the month. I just did a front flip off his bed. And when you're able to really do that and really learn yourself, then you can be like, oh my God, that's so funny. I can't believe all the things. I know now that I have one day a month that I giggle all day, no matter what. I giggle all day. Bad things happen, I giggle. Everything happens, I giggle. And I had to realize that it wasn't just the PMS that's cyclical. Our anxieties, our thoughts, our good days. I'm going to beat him if he comes up to me. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, sweetie. Just give me a minute. Yeah, you can have that. They all add up to this interesting human that we are. And I think that was my favorite part of learning all of this, is learning who I am on a real level. And I blew my mind, right? It was this cool thing to realize, oh my gosh, you're not even who you thought you were. Wow. And that, it just changed everything. And it did take a while. Like I said, I'm 5 years in at this point, but, I'm 4 years in of really doing it. But it's just a completely different and beautiful thing. So, with that said, number one, please feel free to continue to put questions in there if you have questions, because I'm sure there's stuff that I haven't gone over, but I feel like I've done a lot. And while you guys are writing your questions or asking if you can come on to ask a question, because I'd be happy to do that too, I'm going to take you through a mental kind of picture. And that what was missing out of my podcast thing. I never ended up doing it, but I'm going to take you through the mental picture of maybe something that can help you visualize where you are in your journey of your cycle, okay? So if you just want to look inside your mind, and if you're one of the people that can picture things, please picture a beautiful mountain, okay? Now, on one side of the mountain, we're going to call that our follicular side, okay? So we have an up and we have a down, and we're going to call that up the follicular side. The follicular side is our climb, right? Because it's our due. Now, I want you to imagine yourself at the bottom of that mountain, and I want you to imagine yourself wearing almost like a dredge from a ship. Backpack, we're going to call it like a backpack dredge, right? So on the back of a ship, you have that big, long net. It kind of drags way behind the ship. So there's some open space, and the net is behind it, and it's dredging along, and it's kind of picking up anything in its path. Okay, so that's what I want you to picture, is yourself, this net, and this mountain. And you're looking up the mountain, and I want you to imagine that as a child, you're going up this mountain little by little, and you have this little net on the back of you. And little by little, there's some things that end up going in the net. And you're climbing the mountain, and you get to the top, and that's your follicular phase. You get to the top, and you kind of look, and you're like, "Ooh, there's some stuff in the net that wasn't there before," right? But you get to the top of the mountain, and the top of the mountain is going to be your ovulatory phase. You look out, and you can see everything in the world. You can see the other mountaintops. You can see the sunshine. You can see bad weather. You can like see everything. So you stand there at the top and you say, wow. And you look back down, and this is like from when you're a child, and you could be like, oh, wow, I rode my bike, I climbed this, I did that. And you can also look behind you and be like, oh, and I went through this. And you start having things in this net little by little. But you made it to the top, and you kind of feel really good that you made it to the top. And you realize that in order to get to the next mountain, you kind of got to go down the other side. And I call that the luteal side. So you're at this beautiful like thing where no matter if it was a hard climb or not, you made it to the top. And you're standing there and you're looking out and you're like, okay, I'm ready for that walk down. And you don't realize that the other side of the mountain is like really steep, like almost like this. So you're at the top and you start going down. It's like whoosh for you to start getting down the other side. And I tell people right after you hit luteal phase and that wound is created in your body, it can feel like you're dropped down the side of that other mountain. It feels very, very heavy. And sometimes like that mountain is just made of jagged rock. That's what we're going to picture, that we couldn't even see how jagged it was. And when you're standing on top and you're looking out, you can kind of see down there, but you didn't really realize. And then what you were carrying, the things that are in there, the things that you thought you carried so well to get to the top, going down feel heavier. It's harder with this big pack on you to go down that side of the mountain. And it feels more frustrating. And there's the possibility that the stuff that you were carrying falls out through these long, I never know what to call them, but like the long ropes that are kind of holding this dredge behind you. And so as you're going down, things that you thought you carried fall out in front of you. And you're tripping over them. And so some of this that you thought you were carrying, subconscious thoughts, feelings, current events, things that are happening that you thought we were carrying, you're tripping over now. And you're trying to pick them up and you're putting them back in your bag and you don't even know what to do. And now you're going down a mountain. It's fast. You can't really control it emotionally. And you have all this shit that's falling out around you that you thought you were doing well at and that you thought you were carrying. And that can create that sense of just, what the fuck? But then your kid drops a fork or makes noise or starts chewing with their fucking mouth open or all of the things. And you just, I can't handle it, right? The thing is that this is happening so subconsciously that sometimes we don't even know what's going on inside of us. And I personally think that's why we only have so many do's, because our inside is already doing so much with all these thoughts and feelings and carrying and emotions and picking stuff back up and hoping that it can carry everything down a mountain that is not easy. And so technically our hormones actually do like excrete different things that make us more sensitive, that make our bodies hurt more, that make our bodies more limber, but also that means that we can have more accidents, we can have more breaks, our joints might hurt a little bit more, things feel differently in luteal. But it's not just that, it's also what we are carrying and what's falling out all around us. So when we are asking ourselves to allow ourselves to make luteal more gentle for us, it's in so many more ways than we know. And when we're asking ourselves, what's coming up for me? We're actually taking something out of that pack, working on it and releasing it. So there's less to carry. And when I talk about creating psychohomeostasis, what I say is, now picture yourself at the bottom of the mountain in the beginning. And you realize that that mountain can be made of many things. And if that mountain is made of sand, it's going to be harder to climb. And how we can make our mountain out of sand sometimes is by not knowing what the hell we're doing. What are we doing? We don't even know. Everything's up in the air, right? And maybe we feel stuck and all of those things. And so we have nothing and we're just kind of scrambling to get up the mountain. We're scrambling in the sand. But what would happen if instead of that, we worked on really making that follicular phase determined? We have learned the amount of do's that we have. And each time we learned something about ourselves in that follicular phase. And we learned, oop, don't burn a bridge. Oop, this is where I can be a little bit an overconfident, egotistical human. This is this. Like every time you can imagine yourself taking a little bit of the dirt or the sand or whatever and metaphorically transforming it into a stair. And you can take whatever was built, whatever you used to build that stair, and you can put a little bit in your backpack. So it feels a little heavy, right? You're doing some work, but you're putting it in your backpack, okay? So now you've made a stair. And if you continue to do that, and now you have these stairs to climb, follicular feels pretty good, right? It's still a climb, but you've maximized how you're climbing and what you're climbing up. And so it feels really good. Now you get to the top, you're able to look out, you look down and you say, wow, that's a really, really hard place to be. But you have some stuff in your backpack, right? And you say, whew, and you throw some of that dirt down the luteal side, because if you have done the best that you can in follicular, you're actually padding your luteal, right? Well, I may not have tried to start 18 businesses and then I'm going to put myself down in luteal for not being able to do it. Some dirt goes down that side. Oh, I may not understand why I don't like washing my face anymore, so I'm not going to call myself names. A little dirt goes down the luteal side. Your bag gets lighter. Luteal side's not so rocky. You still have to go down, but maybe you put enough dirt there that it's not such a far valley and it's not such a hard walk. And your backpack is a little bit lighter. And that's the metaphor that I try to explain to people for why it creates a homeostasis. Is because it's not that we don't have a mountain. We can't get rid of our cycle, but we can make it better for ourselves. I'm going to give one more quick metaphor for the follicular side too. If you create so many do's, right? And that's fine, but if you create so many do's that all your stairs are like little tiny little stairs, it's also going to feel like that's going up, right? So really getting intent on your follicular side changes everything. And I think in the entire world of cycle, that part is left out the most of how we can really make a difference, how we can really create that homeostasis change for us, is to really look at what we are doing in our do's and what we are feeling in our feels, right? Because this is how out of whack we can be. I want to start a business. Wow, that felt really good. I don't know what I'm doing. Shit, I shouldn't have started. Should I work on my business? I don't know what to do. Huh? Wow, you didn't do anything you were supposed to do this week. Maybe you shouldn't have done this at all. Do I want to do anything? Huh? Right? And it just creates this whole thing where the whole month gets out of whack because what we wanted to do, we don't know what to do with in luteal. So we don't trust ourselves in follicular. So we stop our do's and the whole thing just ends up, we don't know what to do. Just times the amount of times it could get out of whack. And that's how we end up feeling so on that roller coaster of emotions all the time. So let's see over here if there is any questions. I don't really see any, and thank you, Gemma, for being here. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a whole different world, right? It's a whole different world when you start looking at it differently. Everything changes. It's impossible for it not to. And it's like, once you know the information, it's amazing what you can deliver in an hour and 15 minutes or however long it's been. Mind-blowing and ridiculously life-changing, right? So what I'm going to end up leaving you with, again, if there's nobody who wants to come on, is what do you track and how do you track? And the best way to do that, I'll keep you in the group is, oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah. Anybody who has any questions who ends up watching this, you can feel free to reach out directly in the group and I'll make sure that everybody can see the answers. And if you have something private, you can do it directly. just specifically for this group and nowhere else, I'm going to give you guys the tracking system. It's just one page. It is mind-blowing what you can know out of absolute simplicity. So I do call it a super simple tracking system, because what you do is column 1, I say, just track your executive functioning levels. Learn to know what your dues are. Learn to know what level you are, from just starting from a little idea in your head in order to get stuff all the way accomplished. Like, how can we move from one to the other and how fast? Just give yourself a 1 through 10. You'll start noticing patterns of who you are energetically, right? And it's going to differ, of course, from month to month based on what we have going on, if we slept and all these other things, but you'll get a generalized pattern. Sometimes it takes 6 months. The second thing that I ask you to track, let me see. So I have it here in front of me on the computer. Pervasive feelings. I just want you to ask yourself, what are the feelings that you're having for the day? And we're not allowed to journal. This is data. This is data you're allowed to get. So if you have something you want to journal or write out, you can, like, oh, this day relates to F1 of my journal, you know, whatever you want to do. But all I want is a couple of words. What were your pervasive feelings of the day? So my pervasive feeling today is, it's actually calm with slight worry, okay? So let's see. The next one is pervasive thoughts. So today my pervasive thought is thankful. I'm thankful, which is also feeling, but I'm thankful specifically for my dog being here in general. But I would say it's still early for a pervasive thought. We'll see what happens throughout the day. But let's say, okay, yeah, let's say yesterday. So I got my period today. Yesterday was my end of my luteal. I always say luteal comes kind of like a cone. Sometimes right before you get your period, it can become really, really intense, right? Yesterday, I had to reframe a lot. I've been consistently worried about my dog, which you guys understood. I had to reframe that. I'm also in a hotel because I need to be near the hospital. My house is getting work done. There's somebody there doing drywall. I got in a car accident. I am upset about being alone for Valentine's Day. Like, there were so many thoughts going on, right? And I had, my pervasive thought of yesterday was, am I good enough again? It started coming back up for me. So if I go to yesterday, pervasive feeling was worry. Pervasive thought was, am I good enough? Am I going to succeed? Right? Because I felt like I wasn't. And I had to reframe. And I think that's what I posted a couple of weeks ago. Like, things have been really intense for me lately. The fact that I understand where those are coming from, and I can be thankful, and I could look at myself and say, oh my God, look at you worrying about yourself, right? Or worrying about things, showing that you're actually a good person who cares, right? I reframe that to myself, that I'm only thinking that way because I am a good person. Who cares? I had to do that a lot yesterday, but that would have been my pervasive feeling and my pervasive thought. Possible triggers. I always want us to know what the stimuli is going on around our thoughts so that we can actually possibly look at that and say, how do I work through this particular thing? What do I need to remember that might be coming up for me? So my possible triggers are feeling lonely, of course, and worrying about my dog, the dog thing, you know, being sick. I can look deeper into that and say, okay, I just lost a dog 6 months ago. There's a lot coming up for me. And I can ask myself more questions around what's coming up for me and why, so that I could work through that reframe. Reactions and actions. Especially when you first start, your reactions to things are going to tell you so much. My normal reactions, I would have, like, my reaction now was reframe. My reactions before were intense, right? So it sinks to say, but like when I started this, might my reaction have been, I don't even deserve to be here. I don't want to be here. I want to commit suicide. Or angry at other people, or like angry at the vet that they didn't do good enough, or you know what I mean? Like, various things may have come up for me. I can't say specifically. I know that now my reaction was to work through it, like, and reframe for myself. And then the last column is physical info and other. And that just means, were there other things that might have contributed physically to where I'm at. That's also where you're going to write if you get your period, or if you really feel like you were ovulating, or if you had any specific feelings in your body that you know are coming up. You can also write in that section if you know that your feelings are coming, if you've been noticing that they're coming from your head or they're coming from your body. And so I would encourage everybody to do that. So I'm going to put that in there. That way you guys can just be able to do it. And I know it's just simple stuff, just a couple of words, but then you're able to look at all of that information at a glance. So you can literally look really quickly and be like, oh, okay, so I can look and see where my reactions were, what they were, and maybe the things that were coming up for me, right? Like I said, if you're going to journal, please feel free to do that, but just keeping this really simple allows you to be able to see it really simply, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to pop that in the group as well. And thank you guys. Thank you. It's so interesting. Really, once you start looking at it, what you realize about yourself. And I look back and I'm going to tell you, there's some moments that I had to have a good cry for myself, you know, for arguments that I started with my son, or ways that I treated myself, or ways that I treated other people based on everything that I was carrying in that, I say backpack because I don't know what to call it, but in my nut. And so when I work with people, we work on a multi-dimensional level of saying, okay, so A, we need to learn all of this stuff on a little bit of a deeper level. And then we also really need to look at unpacking your net. And so that's where both things came into play. My love for data, my love for experimentation and understanding self, but also the life coaching side of me and the intuitive side that says you not only need somebody who can teach this stuff, but also somebody who could walk through it and help you unpack the stuff that you've been carrying for so long, right? So it's a multi-dimensional work through, and that's why I really love what I do, is because it feels natural and it finally feels complete. Like I feel so complete in being able to help somebody now, because it was missing. It was like a missing part of a picture that's no longer missing. To really dig deep and be able to say, there's a net you're carrying and it's going to feel real different in all these times. But one thing that's really important is unpacking your net and making it as light as it can be for you, so that you have room for the dirt and you have room to throw it down the other side, so that you're not carrying such heavy stuff on that way down, right? So that's pretty much it. And I'm just going to give it 2 minutes. If there's any other questions or anything that you wanted to come on and ask or share, I would be more than happy to do that. But other than that, I will sign off. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the hearts. I really appreciate it. It's some good stuff. Like, I've never been like the kind of person that was like, oh, you know what I mean? But this stuff is truly good. Like, it's truly good. And I know it in my heart. Like, my heart just feels happy to deliver the information, and it feels confident, and it feels like I know this is the way, you know, like, it's so important. It's such important stuff. And I wish that I could do it on a bigger level. And I wish that the doors weren't so shut for the things that I want to do, because wow, you know, like, so yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate, and I thank you for your gratefulness. I really appreciate you. And so with that, I will leave. And again, anybody else who comes on and is able to, or wants to ask questions or have anything specifically for the group, absolutely willing to do that. Or if it's something private, please feel free to send a message. Will be good to learn and share with my daughters. I have had the most wonderful messages and communication with some of my moms who I've taught, who said that their relationship with their families have completely changed, especially their daughters, because once you start learning things you say, it's so easy to look at other people and be like, oh my God, I know exactly where she is in her cycle. This is exactly how she reacts at this time. And then it also allows you to be like, I wonder what's coming up for her and what she's carrying in her net. And how can I help her work through that? I have goosebumps. It's beautiful. I had a little girl write me a letter Thank you so much for explaining to my mom about this, because now I understand, because I always felt like I was bad or crazy. She wrote she felt like she was bad or crazy during that time, that she didn't know how to handle herself or her emotions, and always got in trouble. And that ended because of this, because her mom understood where she was coming from and was able to say, hey, honey, why don't you take a second and ask yourself where you are and maybe how you're responding to things differently right now. And between the two of them working like that together, their entire relationship changed. It's like, it's such good stuff. So yeah, I'm glad that you wrote that. But yeah, so any questions or anything, please feel free to ask, you guys. And I will be also dropping the PDF for the tracker in the chat. And yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys are going to have an amazing day. Thank you for being here with me. I really appreciate you. Yeah. Thank you. I will talk to you guys soon.